Hey guys, this is Ms. Griswold. I'm going to work a little bit over the review for our quiz tomorrow over Chapter 12. This is going to be over the end of chapter test. Some of it I'm just going to kind of touch base on a little bit. Some of it I will go over more in depth. We've gone over a lot of stuff in this chapter. Everything is kind of related to each other. It's just building off of one another. So you just need to be able to recognize it and know when to apply it in each situation. Okay, for the first section, all this is adding and subtracting polynomials. Okay, so paying attention to our exponents, when we can combine our like terms, make sure that you pay attention to our signs and what I might need to do in order to simplify that. From here, this is multiplying polynomials. Some of it's involving the distributive property. Some of it you can FOIL, or you can even do the box method. So for a problem like this, if you want to, you can do the box method, but make sure that you pay attention and you combine all of your like terms. Okay, for the third section, move this out of the way. For the third section, I'm just factoring each binomial completely. Okay, well here I have 10x cubed and 15x squared. I should be able to hopefully see that I have got a 5x squared in common. So you're factoring out your GCF. Over here you can factor out a GCF as well. Once you have your GCF factored out, then you're going to see a trinomial inside of your parentheses. This trinomial, though, can be factored out as two binomials. So you're going to do that using your x that we've been working with, where I've got what two numbers multiply together to give me addition. So make sure that you complete this step. A lot of us probably are just going to stop in the middle. If we go back and we check our answers with what's posted, we should see that it's factored out to get this. So you're actually going to have three different terms separated by parentheses. So make sure you pay attention to this one here. Okay, so this is where I kind of wanted to do some focusing on the end of chapter starting at number 4. What they've done here is they've taken 4 different types of problems. Okay, this one here is the perfect cubes. This one here is a perfect square. Again, I have a perfect square. And this is a perfect square binomial versus this one is a trinomial. And again, over here, I've got a perfect cube. And the reason why I know it's perfect cube, well, first off, I've already told you that if we're factoring anything out, if we're actually solving it, and and you see your exponents of cubes, then you know that it's going to be perfect. Okay. Second thing, 8 cubed or 2 cubed is 8, and 5 cubed is 125. Okay. So I'm going to take each one of these A through C. I'm not going to do letter D and work this out. You do have these notes in your IMB. I know that perfect cubes is on page 199. Perfect squares is probably around 197 or so. And I believe perfect square trinomials is in between those two topics. So go back and look in your IMB, probably around pages 190 to 199. Go back and check on these pages. Okay, this one we discussed was a perfect cube. I know that it's a perfect cube because 125 and 8 are both have a cube root. Okay. Well, in our notes, we talked about that if I have a cube plus or minus b cube, when I factor this out, it factors into 2 different methods. It's going to be, and we remember to use the word SOAP to help us determine our signs. So I need to, the formula that I'm going to use is A, and I'm going to write plus or minus here because it determines on what your sign is here. Plus or minus B times A squared plus or minus A times B plus B squared. Okay, and then with the SOAP, this one is the same sign, the opposite sign, and then this one is always positive. So in this equation, I have subtraction. So that's the sign I'm going to use, and then I'm going to use the opposite, so I would use addition. Okay, well, if my a cube is 125x cubed, then that means my a is going to be the square or the cube root of 125, which is 5, and the cube root of x cubed is x. Okay, so if my b cubed is 8, and then my b is going to be 2. So I'm going to take this part here, and I'm going to take this part here, and I'm going to plug them into my equation. So my a is 5x. In my problem, I'm dealing with subtraction, so I'm going to subtract my b. A squared. Well, a squared is going to be 25x squared. I have to remember to square my coefficient and my variable. So that gives me 25x squared. This is the opposite, so the opposite sign is going to be addition. So I'm going to add a times b, which is the same thing as saying 5x times 2, or 10x. And then always positive, and b squared. B squared is equal to 2 squared, which is 4. And that would be my factored expression. Here's my complete final answer. You've got to be able to recognize that it's a cube, perfect cubes, and you've got to be able to know your formulas. If you do not know your formulas, then it's not going to help you out any. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's look at letter B. I know that this is a perfect cube, or perfect square, excuse me, trinomial, because 4x squared is a perfect square. That would be 2x. 4x, I can divide that out, and 1 is a perfect square as well. We might not think of 1 as being a perfect square, but it is. Okay? I can do one of a few different things. I'm going to first do this using the slip and slide so I can get rid of this 4. Then I'm going to do it without doing that, and then I'm going to do it using our regular method that we've been doing. Okay, so let me slip and slide, and that gives me x squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay, well, I can recognize that this is a perfect square trinomial because everything inside of it is a perfect square. Not only is it a perfect square, but it's a perfect square trinomial. So if we're going back and we're looking at these notes, we want to be looking at this section. And a perfect square trinomial is in the form of a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Well, in this problem, my a squared is going to be x squared. So that means my a is equal to x. My b squared is equal to 4, so my b is equal to 2. This is going to factor into a plus b squared. Okay, well, a is x, b is 2, and then I would square that. Now, this would technically be my final answer, but what did I do? I slip, slide, and divide. So now I need to divide this out. So I'm going to divide this out into a 4. Okay. Well, if I do that, I can see that this is going to reduce down. So this will reduce down to a 1 and to a 2. Then I'm going to bring this 2 out in front. So this becomes 2x plus 1 squared. That is my final answer. I'm going to show it to you doing a different way without doing the slip, slide, divide. Okay, well, I can also think of this as just being a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Well, if I treat this entire thing as being my a squared, I would have 4x squared. So a would become 2x. I can say 1 is still b squared, and 1 would still be my b. Do the same exact thing. So I've got 2x plus 1. I get the same exact answer. This is the easier way to do it. If we're used to doing the slip, slide, and divide and we want to stay with that, that is perfectly fine. So if you prefer to just always be consistent and do it that way, you can. And this problem, though, because it is a perfect square trinomial, I do not have to slip, slide, and divide. Okay, I can keep that a as being a 1. I cannot always do that. Okay, the third method. So say I get to this problem on the quiz and I just completely draw a blank. What do? Guys, use the old-fashioned method. Use what we've been doing. Use slip, slide, and divide and just work it out from there. Okay, so slip, slide, that gives me x squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay, we'll just set up my x. What two numbers when multiplied by 4 also add to give me 4? Well, let's see. That would have to be 2 and 2. So that gives me x plus 2 and x plus 2. Hey, look, it's still the same thing. I still have x plus 2 squared, but I forgot to divide. I need to go back, divide by 4. When I do that, these two are going to cross down and simplify to become a 1 and a 2. That pulls out front. Same thing here, pulls out front. So I'm left with 2x plus 1 squared. Guys, don't get overwhelmed. Don't get bogged down. I know we've learned several different methods. I know we have several different formulas. The perfect squares, the perfect cubes, the perfect square trinomials, those are all great, but you can do it the X method just like we've been doing. Those are just methods that if you can recognize it, go for it. Let's look at the last one. Okay, I have 9x squared minus 4. Again, I'm going to do it two different methods. First, I'm going to do it as a perfect square, and then I'm going to do it with the X method that we've been doing. Okay, these notes are actually on page 193. I've brought it up for you. Hopefully, you can see this on my screen right now. So I've got factoring difference of squares, page 193. I have a squared minus b squared right here in the middle. And that is always going to factor out to be a plus b and a minus b. So I've gone back and I've refreshed my memory over my notes. Now let's work it out. Okay, so we said a squared minus b squared. This always has to be subtraction. If it was addition, it would automatically be prime. And this is going to factor out to a plus b and a minus b. Well, what is my a? If my a squared is 9x squared, then my a must be 3x. What is my b? Well, if my b squared is 4, my b must be 2. So plug this in. This has to be a plus b, a minus b. So 3x plus 2 and 3x minus 2. And that's my answer. I've come to the test day. I'm confused. I don't know where to begin. Okay, what can I do? Treat it just like we have been doing. I can say that this is the same thing, 9x squared minus 4, that is the same thing as saying 9x squared plus 0x minus 4. Well, now I have a trinomial. Now I can set up my x. I've got negative 4 and 0. So two numbers that multiply to give me negative 4, but add to give me 0. Well, that would be negative 2 and positive 2. Wait, I actually forgot to do one thing. What did I forget to do? I forgot to slip, slide, and divide. So let me go back and do my x again. So I've got 9x squared plus 0x minus 4, slip and slide. So this becomes x squared plus 0x minus 36. Same deal. Draw your x. This becomes negative 36. This becomes 0. I have 6, negative 6. So in my parentheses, I've got x plus 6, x minus 6. I can see that these are going to need to be divided by 9. And they can also simplify down. So this becomes 2 and a 3. This becomes 2 and 3. And I can bring those 3's out to the front as coefficients. So it becomes 3x plus 2 and 3x minus 2. Guys, it's the same exact answer we just had. Same exact method. If you can get the perfect square trinomials, if you can understand the perfect cubes, the perfect squares, go for it. Good job. If you can't, you can still do this method. even when you're completing the square, you can still do this method. You have to complete the square first, but you can still do this method. So let's do a problem like that together. Determine the roots of the equation by x squared minus 8x minus 48 equals 0 by completing the square. So if I were to work this problem out, x squared minus 8x minus 48, and do it as is right now, if I were to set up my x and try to do negative 48 and negative 8, I would not get a single number that would work. I can't do it. So I need to complete the square first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 48 to both sides. And this gives me x squared minus 8x plus my box is equal to 48 plus my box. Now, we said earlier that this, to get my box, to get my square, okay, you're going to do b divided by 2a squared. Now, in this case, our a is 1. So do I need to multiply by a? No. Okay, so this will be negative 8 divided by 2 and square. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 16. Or excuse me, negative 4. Negative 4 squared is positive 16. So this becomes 16 in both of these boxes. Okay, if I simplify this down, x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 48, and 16 becomes 64. So now this is my perfect square. This is now what I'm working with, perfect square trinomial, excuse me. Now I can factor this out and then actually find my zeros. So this here is just all completing the square. I'm going to erase this, set it back up at the top so I can continue working to find my zeros. Okay, now I'm going to find my zeros. There's two different ways to do this. You can either use your x and set it up 16 and negative 8. So you're going to get negative 4 and negative 4. Or you can realize that, hey, this is a perfect square trinomial where we had a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, and think, okay, well, this should just be a minus b squared. Well, a is x. B is going to be 4, x minus 4 squared. And we're going to set this equal to 64. Now, I need to take the square root of both sides to cancel this out. When I take the square root, remember, it's not just positive now. It is also negative, so plus or minus the square root of 64. Well, this one's happens to be a perfect square, so this is going to be x minus 4 plus or minus square root of 64. I just rewrote that, sorry. Add 4 to both sides. So this is x equals, square root of 64 is 8, so this will be 4 plus or minus 8. Okay, well, 4 plus 8 is 12. And 4 minus 8 is negative 4. So these should be my two zeros. If you were to plug this back into your equation, 12 squared is 144. Negative 8 times 12 is 96. 96 minus 48, all of that should equal 0. So you should always get 0 equals 0 on both sides of the equation. Same thing with that negative 4. Make sure that you pay attention to your parentheses, though, when you plug it in. Okay, I know this was a very long video. It was 18 minutes, but I tried to make sure that I covered one of each of the major questions. I know I didn't go over 7, A, and B on the end of chapter, but all it is factoring. Your A is even 1 on both of them. So you're just factoring it out to find your zeros. If you have any questions, message me on Edmodo. Come see me in the morning. Tomorrow is Tuesday, so you also have that Algebra X block that you have the option to go to. Have a great day.